Serious, people of Reddit that didn't want a child and are parents now. How's your life now? My husband and I never wanted kids. In fact, 2 months before we got married in 2016, I got my tubes tied, and I still have an IUD, so nothing's getting through there. Well, crap happens, and a month and a half after my wedding, my severely mentally ill sister asked me to pick her 5-year-old up, and basically never came back for her. My husband and I went to court to get custody of her, and now we have a happy, well-adjusted 7-year-old. I still struggle with it at times. My husband and I had some pretty neat plans for our future, so now we've got to try to figure out how we can make it work with a kid in the picture. I also have severe depression, so sometimes it's hard to get up and take her to school and stuff like that. But we've got a lot of support between my husband, my mom, my younger sister, and my husband's family, so it all works out. In the end, I'm honestly just grateful that my kid is no longer being abused or neglected, and that thought alone really helps me in coming to terms with the fact that my life isn't going the way I planned it. My wife took legal custody of her son's 1-year-old daughter when he got sent to prison. We had been together 7 years but only been married around 1. She did this without discussing with me, just kept her one day and she's still here. I don't have any kids of my own. Doing that without my input has really affected our relationship. It's been 10 years now and my wife and her granddaughter fight constantly. She was spoiled bad by all the blood relatives and now runs the roost. It has made being at home very tense. I am 60 years old now and always thought I would have a nice quiet home to be comfortable in. So to answer the question, life now is not as good as it was before this all happened. It's okay. I have 2 now. One 8 and the other is 1. The 8-year-old is hilariously weird and the 1-year-old is showing that she also can be. It's freaking hard. I have no idea what I'm actually doing. I know I'm not the best mother, but I'm okay with it because I know I'm doing my best. I have spent many years working very hard to do it right. By that I mean better than my parents. Educational support, healthy emotional contact, life skills, etc. There have been many challenges to all those things. I'm very tired, and as I get closer to the sort of finish line of college graduation, I find I have far less patience and am filled with regret for the life I had imagined. On the one hand, a lot of my dissatisfaction with how life has turned out has to do with my partner. They really wanted children, but then didn't step up to fill the role of parent. On the other hand, I could have sought out a better partner if I wasn't burdened with the job of raising kids. I have a deep commitment to finishing. I would never be one of those walk-away parents. I really wanted to have satisfying work and travel, and that's not how it turned out. I've made my kid's life very nice, and I'm hoping there is time left to get pleasure in the next phase of my life. I do have this impression that people that don't want kids are the ones who cares the most about important aspects of it, like emotional support and a proper education, while people who want kids feels like they just want a doll that will love and amuse them. I feel pretty isolated right now. She's only 8 months old and I'm on maternity leave. My husband works a lot, so some days it's just the 2 of us. She's cool though, pretty funny kid and very cheeky. In regards to life, it hasn't really changed much other than being a stay-at-home mum for the first year. We love sleeping, so we do a lot of that. Well, the sleeping part sounds nice, but I understand how that could get a bit lonely. I resented my wife for not following the plan and aborting the pregnancy. I carried that weight for a long time. I've grown to love my daughter very much. We have also since had 2 more, only the last of which was planned. I love them all. I love my wife. The pain my resentment caused though reverberates in my marriage today. I will most likely be divorced this year. We've built such a great life for the kids, but along the way I lost my wife. There is nothing I wouldn't give to take back my butthole comments and crappy attitude all those years ago. Tell her this. It may mean the world to her. I have an in-law who married a lady who didn't want kids. He pressured her into having kids anyhow. She got pregnant with twins. The twins were born with disabilities. He killed himself when they were 2 years old. This is the most fricked up that poor woman. My daughter was born mentally disabled. I always tell myself it could be worse. that there are kids who just shake back and forth in wheelchairs. Thing is, she is happy now but has no concept of death, and I can only imagine what it will be like when her mother and I are gone. She will be institutionalized and abused probably. Crappy. Kiddo's mum fled across the country, breaking a restraining order, after she got her support order placed against me. I wasn't ready to support myself, let alone help support a kid. She's been physically shamed by her uncle and probably her mother, and it's been difficult at best to have the uncle thrown into prison. The process has been going on for about 2 years now. She's told me she wants to live with me. I don't blame her, but right now, I'm homeless, in so much school debt that I'll probably die with it, and really just struggling to keep myself going. As bad as it seems at times, it gets better. You'll pull through. I wish the best for you and your daughter. 6 years later, financially recovering, her bills from having her wiped out our savings. Then we couldn't recover since we were throwing $800 a month to daycare, diapers, formula, missed kid stuff on top of day-to-day life. She started school so daycare is much cheaper now. That alone is getting us out of the hole. Finances are the reason my husband got a vasectomy. We never ever want to be that tight budget-wise again, ever. Outside of that, she's awesome and right now she's playing Sonic on her tablet. I literally just booked a vasectomy based on your comment. Thank you. I always said, I'd rather have herpes than have a kid. Well, I ended up with a kid from a girl that was just a frick buddy. I begged her to get an abortion. I offered to pay for the entire thing and take care of her afterwards. She refused my offer, and as she got further into her pregnancy she asked me if she thought we should try to be together for the baby. My father got married twice because he knocked up someone and neither marriage worked out, so I said no because that's how people end up miserable. Fast forward 8 years later. I couldn't imagine my life without this beautiful little girl that's going to jump into my bed and beg me for an egg sandwich any second now. It wasn't until after we were married that my wife decided she wanted a baby. Instincts, I suppose. I did not want a child, ever, but given her persistence I felt like I needed to choose between spending the rest of my life being the one who took that away from her or take on the burden myself and go for it. Well, they say it changes everything and it's the greatest magical experience. What they don't tell you is that you trade everything for it. Sure, life carries on, but every moment of every day is defined by your child's needs. Want to stay up late? You'll pay for it in the morning. Long day at work? Hello, 2 hours of cooking and cleaning. What would you like to do this weekend? Doesn't matter, you don't have time. Finally got ahead financially? Well, enjoy dumping $12K a year into 4 days a week of daycare. Oh boy, got a sitter for date night. Still gotta get up at 6 AM so don't have too much fun. We are mid-30s, legitimate middle class. We took on zero debt for the medical costs, all saved and planned in the years prior. We have an affordable home, new cars, etc., etc. On the surface it's a perfect scenario, and my daughter is so smart and beautiful, but I hate waking up every flipping day. Now she's awake after less than an hour of her only nap of the day. Game over. And I get crazed stares and endless questions when I say I don't want kids. Great, I got knocked up at 19, had him at 20. I was with his dad for 4 years at that point, so it wasn't like I got knocked up to some random dude. I went to an abortion clinic. My son went with me, although he was totally against it, and it was a known fact that we would be breaking up when I chose to abort this child. When they started telling me details of how it worked, I broke down and freaked out and left. I absolutely couldn't do that. In retrospect, I was so against kids because my mom and dad didn't start having kids until they were 28/29, so in some way I felt that I had failed my parents. Although I had graduated high school with 3.8 GPA, was in college, had my own place and a full-time job, and had been with the father for years. Anyhow, I decided to just suck it up and have a baby. The whole pregnancy I wouldn't refer to him as a baby. It was a monster growing inside me. I was not happy about the idea of having a baby. I didn't tell anyone until they asked. 5/6 months. and I openly would tell people that I wasn't excited and I didn't understand how anyone could be excited for a kid etc etc. After having my son, when he was about 2, my mom told me that her and my sister were worried that I was going to give birth then take off and leave the baby with my well, I had that baby in December of 2009, and honestly life is great. I did fall in love as soon as I saw him. There was no awkward stage at all. I've been a caring and attentive mother. I'm human and I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to give the illusion that I am. Since he was born, it's like this weird instinct kicked in, and as soon as I started hanging out with him I was totally consumed by this amazing loving feeling. It's like I was so worried about having to take care of another human being and how needy babies are, but really when he needed stuff it was such a good feeling to be the one to give it to him. It's weird. So weird. Like all of a sudden my biggest fear is anything happening to this tiny little baby that just a few days, weeks etc. ago was in my womb, and I was calling him a monster. Weird. I love him. I'm happy everything worked out like it did. It made me totally open to unconditional love, and I truly believe it has changed me for the better as a human. He's the best. I did eventually stop dating his dad 4 years later, but we get along great and I like my son's stepmom and his dad likes my everything is great. It turned out okay. I hope I didn't ramble too much. Also, just because it worked out for me doesn't mean it's the same for everyone. My son just turned 17. After his birthday dinner tonight he was yelling and screaming at me and calling me names, then throwing stuff in my face that he remembers. Stuff his abusive rapist of a dad has always told him. Lies. From when he was a kid. I struggle to survive and wish to this day I'd never had him. He's always been a little butthole. So, that pretty much sums it up. I'm sorry. I miss sleeping in, but I'm not as suicidal anymore because it's as if he's filled this void and I can feel something again. Love my son. My daughter is the only reason I'm still alive. I don't have much hope for my future, but I'll be damned if I don't give her a good one. I never wanted children. I knew I didn't. However, that's not the way my life turned out. My daughter is 17 now and I'm 37. She knows I love her and I've told her that if I had to go back I would make all the same choices because it meant she would live. Now to answer your question, I would describe my life as garbage, but I don't think it's related to my daughter's existence. I became a mom of a born child for the first time just before my 40th birthday, and I totally get and support people who don't want to have children. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't want to be a parent. Don't do it. Before I became a mom, I always knew that I didn't want any kids. I was raised in an abusive, neglectful home by parents who clearly didn't like kids or being parents, and it never looked like any dang fun to me. I terminated an unplanned pregnancy when I was 20 and another one when I was 22. I married a man when I was 29 who already had children, and I was content with being a part-time stepmother. After 2 years of marriage, he asked me to go off birth control and see what happened, and I agreed. Well, nothing happened for 8 years, even though we had a very active private life, and I was sure it was because I had had those dastardly abortions and I accepted it as a just punishment. Then, his kids were grown and we were done paying child support and bought a Harley Davidson and were going to have a great time. I asked my hubby to have a vasectomy, and he agreed, but procrastinated and I didn't nag him. On my 39th birthday, I know due to math, he knocked me up. I was totally freaked out and seriously considered another abortion, but only for a few minutes, literally. After we talked it over, hubby and I chose to continue and become new parents at age 40 and 44. Of course, it hasn't been all magical, but the change in perspective was profound and, lucky for me, a beautiful one. I was fortunate to be able to stay home with my son for a few years and it was a wonderful time. I was completely devoted to his care and raising, which, in hindsight, was a mistake. I should have devoted a bit more to my own self, but I grew past that. My life now is one with more purpose than ever before. Preparing a young person to navigate this world, and most importantly, teaching them to live without me, is a daunting mission, but it fills me up with pride and joy to watch my kid growing into an amazing young person, and, also, I am profoundly grateful that I had a choice. TLDR, never wanted kids, had one at 40. It's tough, but great and I love it. Thank you for sharing this story. Got one age 7. It's interesting to say the least. When they learn to walk, imagine a lemming. It runs straight towards danger and you're waddling after it shouting no no no. They think it's a game. You're trying to catch the slippery little blighter. When they learn to talk, imagine a hyperactive puppy who demands why when you tell them no then does it anyway and cries at the inevitable telling off. When they go to school, I am here. You get some dignity back. Like you have a whole 7 hours to yourself. You can go to the toilet on your own. A featuring that hasn't been achieved in years but comes with a downside. Trying to hide those embarrassing pictures your kid drew of you burning dinner again. Or hearing how little Becky smacked a kid across the chops for dissing Charizard on the playground. There are genuine upsides I hadn't considered. Though, the compliments on what a well-behaved child I usually have, how she can take something she had learned once and then use it in other aspects of her life. Watching an amazing human being form from every experience and getting to proudly say for better or worse that's my kid monster angel. I love being a parent, but I'd never have another child. Little Becky better slap that bee twice. Charizard is boss. When I was younger I never ever wanted kids. I hated being around children and they were all for some reason drawn to me and I was absolutely annoyed by them. All of them. My mom growing up always told me not to have kids. She wasn't about to raise another one and that if I got pregnant that we'd take care of it. So, I got older. 25, on our own. Was engaged to my BF of 7 years married now. And we got pregnant. I wasn't upset about it. We'd talked about it and both wanted a child. So it was okay. I was scared to tell my family though. When I did, my mom was excited to be a grandma but not excited for me to be a mom. I loved pregnancy. Everything about it was amazing to me but my mom kept warning me how much work and how hard it was to raise a baby so I just wanted to stay pregnant forever. I was afraid I was going to be a terrible mom. My mom got everything needed for a baby for her house. Note, she smoked forever in the house. So much the walls were yellow and you could peel tar spots off the windows. But it's not something I was concerned about because that's how I was raised. Because she figured she'd be raising or at least always babysitting my child I guess. She thought I'd want not much to do with my baby once I had her. So, I had my baby girl, the nurse, who could smell the smoke on everyone. Also I didn't and don't smoke or drink just so you all know lol. Gave us a huge speech about how terrible first, second and even third hand smoke is for baby. I loved my baby the moment I saw her. She wasn't some object I could just hand over to anybody. When I brought her home, that's where she stayed. I didn't want anyone around us. My husband smoked and drank a lot and I didn't even want him around her. Everyone who smoked became very aware that they were to wash their hands, change the shirts and chew gum if they wanted to hold her. My husband after a lot of fighting quit smoking and sobered up. I was a mom now. To a beautiful child. A child I wanted to be and do the absolute best for and still do. She is my world and changed my world. She has never been in my mother's house because of the smoke. And my mother has never babysat her. I stay at home and we learn and teach each other every day. She changed my life and I am very proud of who I am for her. I love this story. My mom smoked indoors too and growing up I always had terrible bronchitis and sinus infections. We moved to a new home when I was 14. She started smoking outside and I haven't had upper respiratory issues since. Secondhand smoke is more serious than those who smoke realize. Yep, this was me and my wife, too. Whatever it takes, get that babysitter. Time away from your children is just as important as time with them. Being a parent is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. My son is 1 year and 8 months. My face has aged so much within that time it's unbelievable. I love my son to death, he's my priority and would do anything for him, but if I could go back, I would not have children. My wife feels the same. The funny thing is that before you're a parent, everyone tries to warn you but it literally went in one ear and out the other. You don't know how it is until you have one but by then it's too late to go back. The myth of parenthood feels really dangerous. People need to be able to make informed decisions, especially when it's something so monumental and life-changing and irreversible. It's great. I was never against the idea of having children. I just never wanted to have any, but my wife was not budging and she was very interested in having a baby. My child is the best thing that ever happened to me. I definitely don't regret it, although I'm glad I managed to put it off long enough for us to get established a little bit financially. Thanks for this comment. It takes a bit of stress away for me. I'm in the same situation. The baby is due as April. It's going okay. I have an 8-year-old son and twin 2-year-old daughters. I never wanted kids because I feared not being able to function with lack of sleep. I wanted my freedom. I had no desire to change diapers, and I didn't want to deal with the expenses. I had the children mostly because my wife wanted them. My fears came true and more. I lost the freedom. I still despise having to change diapers, and I miss having more money to myself. But what keeps me going is the milestones my children make. Nothing compares to the first steps your child takes, and there are moments that make me feel like it's all worth it. Just the other day, I was home alone with all 3 kids. The twins were napping while my son was nearby, quietly playing. One of the twins just woke up from a nap and needed attention. I was holding her when the other started waking up. I wouldn't have been able to get to her without disturbing the one I was holding. Without being asked, my son comforted the daughter I wasn't holding until I was able to get to her. Everything about the first 2 or 3 years of raising a child is tough, but as an overall trend, every day gets easier. I consider myself lucky that I have a very supportive wife and my kids are generally happy and healthy. To anyone else on the fence about having kids, know that you'll never feel totally prepared to have them. If you're going to do it, it's better to do it while you're younger. You have your strength and can watch them and possibly your grandchildren grow up. I always thought I wanted kids until I had my first. I was never a kid person, but everyone said it'll be different when you have your own. Looking back, I just think I had my son too young. I would have been happy to wait another 5 years. I felt pressured to have a kid at 25-26. Anyway, the first few months were rough and I still don't like kids. I felt more relaxed and happy once I went back to work. My son is 16 months and he is so silly and snuggly. I'm loving this age. I always thought I'd have 2 kids, but I'm fairly certain I won't have any more. So yeah, life is good now and I love my son, but no more babies. Actually, it's pretty good. I never wanted kids until I met my husband. I don't why, but something changed when I was about 24 or 25. I have 2 babies now, almost 3 and almost 1. I am so thankful for them. They are little monsters sometimes, but they are great little people. I love my nieces and nephews too, but other kids, I can do without them. Absolutely a disaster. My career is ruined, life in shambles, single and thousands of dollars in debt with no real possibility of being in the positive for at least 5-10 years. I'm also renting a basement suite from my friend while I just lost my job due to the other parent disappearing again. I also pay child support while I have my kid full time cause I'm waiting for a court date. It's been a living heck for 3 years. I mentioned before that I should be seeing a psychiatrist but can't even afford to walk into the building right now. I also openly talked about an abortion when the pregnancy happened and I realized a type of person that miraculously got pregnant. Pretty much everything that could go wrong for me did. 4 years ago I had a successful up and coming career, couple thousand in the bank, a clear path to where I wanted to be. Now, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to afford life day to day. But the kid, well, this little autistic dude is the end all and be all. While 0% of this disaster is his fault, I love him more than I could ever have imagined. Actually, part of all of it is that I decided to not be an every other weekend parent and a 50/50 parent. Would go to battle for him and his betterment and actually am with all the court appearances and stands I have made to his mother. Overall, disaster now, but hoping all this will be worth it for him and I in the future. Freaking awesome. I never wanted kids. I tried to get a vasectomy at 20 but couldn't find a doctor that would do it, and my first one was a drunken accident. It took a couple of years to fully adjust. I was a highly competitive cyclist and runner as well as having a well-paying job that I had to leave to spend more time with the fam. But after going through that initial adjustment period, everything is great. My daughter, oldest, is like a mini-me, loves going to the gym with me, riding bikes and has a fierce personality while my son is hilarious and sweet. My wife and I still get overwhelmed from time to time, but it's all part of the journey that makes this so exciting and we've learned to recognize that and enjoy it as part of the process. If I had this to do all over again I would do everything the same. My daughter is a depot shot baby. Definitely wasn't expecting that and just took a pregnancy test because I found one while moving and thought, hey, why not? I never wanted children. I have a genetic disorder that causes immense amounts of pain and any children I have a 50% chance of inheriting it. Besides the fact that I will never have a normal life and will keep having surgeries, procedures and lots of pain, I didn't want to give a child my syndrome. It was crappy while I was growing up and I didn't get to be a child in the traditional sense. I always said I didn't get to enjoy my childhood so I wanted to enjoy the rest of my life without having to care for a tiny human. I planned on having an abortion but after a lot of discussions I decided not to. I regretted that choice, off and on, up until she was born. But having her was the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't have had a child if it wasn't accidental, but I'm so glad it happened. It was hard. Pregnancy destroyed my body and I'm still dealing with the repercussions of it, but my daughter is so empathetic and understanding of my limitations and she's only 3. She makes every day bright. When I have surgeries she takes care of me, along with my husband of course. She reminds me to take my medicine although I never forget to have her. She is just like me, so funny and weird. We had genetic testing conducted for her and she doesn't have my gene mutations. I honestly can't imagine not having her now. Definitely not having any more children, but she is the light of my life. So, overall, it's pretty great. This is exactly my worry. I'm only 19 so not planning on kids anytime soon but my biggest fear would be passing on my genetic condition and through that, crippling pain. I've never wanted children but my wife did. We compromised and now have a baby boy. I didn't want him but he has grown on me. I just now want to make sure he's better adjusted and balanced than I am. Even I can see I'm not very emotionally healthy. It's good that it worked out for you, but it should be noted, if one person does not want children, but the other does, having one child is not a compromise, because one of you had to give up what you wanted. The only compromise in that situation is to end the relationship. It's not as horrible as I'd expected. I had my first and only child at age 37. The biggest difference is all the secrets. There are so many more secrets it's like living a double life. The old me isn't ready to give up my non-child friendly hobbies and the new mommy me has to find ways to hide this from both the child and every judging eye from family, to mom and tot groups, and neighbors. For your information, my hobbies are not drug or alcohol related. Even something as simple as playing Fallout 4 or listening to hip hop gets me ugly looks from the grandparents. Go to be true to yourself. Hiding who you are is going to break you down over time. I hated kids so much all my life. 10 years ago I got married to a wonderful woman. After 8 years we had our son completely unplanned. I'll never forget the day my wife said she was pregnant. I was the happiest dude in the world. Here we are 2 years later and we are getting by pretty decent. Bills get paid, nobody is going hungry, and my son has been the biggest blessing ever. He brings me so much happiness no matter if he's in a good mood or I cut the red wire and he explodes in a tantrum of monumental rage. I love that boy to the ends of the earth and will do my best to give him the life of opportunities I was never given. We are not rich, we don't own a house yet, and we are not dirt poor, but by golly I'm the happiest son of gun I'd ever imagine. 5 weeks in, and it's nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. Pregnancy was the worst part. I had several complications and felt like my whole body had been taken over by some malevolent parasite. My outlook on having a child ranged from metaphoric no depending on the hour for the entire 10+ months of my pregnancy. And then I was in labor and the midwife told me she could see the head crowning. And suddenly I wanted nothing more than to meet my baby girl face to face. I hate to admit it, but all the people who told me I would fall in insta love with my baby were right. Apparently I have more maternal urges than I thought I did. Life is different now, but not in a bad way. The things I dreaded, diapers, sleep deprivation, PPD, etc., aren't anywhere near as bad as I thought they'd be, and the stuff I thought would be easier, breastfeeding, has been way more complex than expected. Karma made up for my crappy pregnancy by giving me the world's chillest baby, so that helps. She's also cute as heck, which I honestly didn't expect. I've made fun of so many ugly babies in my life. I expected to have a gargoyle as punishment. I'm one and done when it comes to kids, but I am very happy I had her. I love her to bits, and can already tell she's gonna be a great person to know as she grows up. It turned out different than I expected. I never intended to have kids or really thought about it. I guess I never decided to not have kids, but didn't really consider it in my life plans. My wife got pregnant by accident. Well, we weren't that careful, but still, we were young and totally unprepared. I just sort of accepted it as well. Okay, guess I have to do this now. There were some very rough years, and I did experience at least one major emotional crisis, feeling like I missed out on my young adulthood because while my friends were traveling, finding themselves, and generally enjoying their freedom, I was working my butt off trying to provide for me new family I never really meant to have. We had a second because, I don't know, why not? We've already got on. I did the dad stuff, went through the motions, but again, never really was excited about anything. Kinda just did what I felt like I had to do. It got better. Fast forward a many years. Things are going pretty well career-wise and we're living a pretty comfortable typical suburban middle-class life. My kids are now 11 and 8. When they were babies and toddlers, I just didn't see them as people, to be honest. They were just these things that I had to take care. Now they are people, and they are incredible people. They're a little like me, but different in just the right ways. We share interests. We do things together. They amaze me with their innocent views of the world, and they take me back to my youth and the excitement I had about life. I can't wait to see what they do, what they become. I honestly admire them as human beings. I can't imagine going through my life never having met these two amazing human beings. And as for my lost young adulthood, well, I'll be in my early 40s still when they're adults. Plenty of chances to make up for my own lost time, except I'll have a shitload of money to really have fun and experience things. So I guess it'll turn out alright. Semicolon. I dislike being a parent, but I do the best I can. It sucks that I can't pursue my dreams to the extent I had planned. I don't take it out on the kid though. Great. Never better. While I wish I had him when younger, especially when I'm feeling low on energy, but we're much more mature and financially secure for this. Our lives are way healthier now. He wakes up early and we have lots of activities outdoors. One of the best upsides is that it's brought my parents closer to us. Over time we just drifted apart, but now they spend most of their time at our house, and it's sometimes very surreal imagining this was the exact way how my dad played with me more than 35 years ago. I was hesitant to have kids, and our now 2-year-old came right out of the blue. It changed my reality. The day I found out, I had a sort of total acceptance of what is now my life, and I got to the task. We both wanted kids, but not yet. I am fortunate enough to have a partner who can really nail the mom role and be a supportive spouse at the same time. The biggest change was lifestyle. What was once is no more. No more partying. No more trips. No more wasteful spending. We could afford it back then. We're now more frugal, creative and resourceful than ever before. You do get used to it if your personality allows. The one thing I would not change at this point is the freaking feeling of love you have for the child though. I've never been so in love with a human as much as I am my 2-year-old. He pulls on my heartstrings daily. I want the old lifestyle back. That was fun. I can't trade my kid in at this point though. We've adjusted and are happy now. Pretty much crap. I mean, I love my daughter, but my life is pretty much a wreck. I spend most nights tossing and turning, stressed out and depressed. Spend most days on painkillers and or drunk. Don't know how much longer it'll all keep up for. Daughter probably be better long term if I was out of the picture. Please get yourself some help, even if it's just calling the suicide hotlines. If you can't bring yourself to do it for you, do it for your child. Speaking as someone whose mother left me to find her body at 11 years old, the trauma isn't something you truly recover from. I could never decide if I wanted children or not. Neither could my husband. We were happy. Our lives were great. We didn't feel like anything was missing, and yet, I wanted his child. I wanted us to have that together. Sometimes. He admitted he sometimes felt the same, so we decided to cut out the birth control and let nature take its course. If it happened, it happened. 5 years later it happened. The first words out of my mouth when I saw the positive sign on the pregnancy test was, "Oh crap." I knew my idyllic life was about to get flipped upside down. At 4 months I had a miscarriage scare, subchorionic hematoma, and I was torn between feeling sad and relieved. When she was born I did not feel an overwhelming rush of love. Instead I felt a deep, overwhelming sense of duty and responsibility. I would call it a sacred feeling, but I couldn't call it love. Today she's almost 4 and things are good. Our lives did end up changing drastically, some good and some bad, but on the whole we're happy. My husband is every bit the amazing father I knew he would be. I'm an okay mom, I guess. I'm doing my best. If I could go back and do it over I might have her a couple years sooner, but I would still have her. I didn't want children throughout my teens and 20s. I thought all pregnancies were horrible and wanted accidents until about 27 when I learned people actually tried to get pregnant. I was shocked. I got married at 32 and my husband wanted children and we talked about it and decided to do it after much discussion. We started trying when I was 33 and I did not get pregnant. 5 years and a lot of medical interventions later I finally got pregnant through IVF. Our baby was born sick and spent 5 weeks in the NICU. We decided to have a second, and that time my uterus ruptured while I was in labor and I almost died. It has been very traumatic and my body is basically a wreck, but I don't really remember what life was like before now. Things are just normal this way and I'd be horrified to lose either of our children. It's pretty good. It's okay. I got pregnant despite birth control and kept her. She's lovely but parenting is much harder than they make it look. Strange, very strange. I was very careful about taking my birth control but at the same time I was on migraine medication, and my doctor didn't see fit to tell me that for every 50 mg dose I took, it lowered the effectiveness of my BC by about 25%. I was taking 200 mg. Needless to say, I got pregnant right around our first anniversary. When we confronted the doctor he insisted that he informed us of the risk of the medication, and there was nothing we could do unless we wanted to seek an abortion, something his clinic, a Christian family doctor, did not provide. We immediately switched doctors, but once I heard my baby's heartbeat, an ultrasound to verify the pregnancy, I couldn't go through with an abortion. He was too real. I was horribly depressed the whole pregnancy, and everything that could go wrong did. I was throwing up an average of 5 times a day, and lost more weight than I was gaining. At 6 months I still didn't look pregnant because my body simply wasn't getting nourishment. The morning sickness was so bad. I developed preeclampsia and had to be put on bed rest at 7 months. My mom had to come stay with us so my husband could keep working and my mom could keep an eye on me since the doctor said I was a seizure risk and had to be with someone at all times. In the end I delivered a month early because my liver and kidneys started to shut down. The first few months were hard, and I hated every minute of being a mom. I was sad and miserable and started to retreat inside myself. I wasn't sleeping even when the baby would. I started to have dreams about suicide and would work myself to exhaustion cleaning and doing unnecessary things just to avoid thinking about the baby. My husband was beside himself with worry for me. I never mistreated the baby though. In fact, he was so carefully taken care of him that I was almost paranoid about it. But I didn't feel a connection with him. He was just there. Looking back I had PPD in the worst way, and going back on hormonal birth control only made things worse. Things got better when I got an IUD. My hormones balanced back out, and I felt safer from pregnancy, which was a terror in the back of my head. Then my son learned how to smile. As silly as it sounds, that made a huge difference. He smiled, and he laughed and he started to gain a personality. It didn't happen overnight, but I slowly fell in love with my baby. He's almost 2 now, and my husband and I adore him. He lights up our life. I'm not going to say that I don't sometimes wish that it was still just my husband and I, but we are happy in our own way. That being said, we're never having another. Wife and I got married in 2003. I was 24 at the time. Didn't want to have kids. Never felt the urge. Wife supported not having kids. Finally came around and confessed to my wife in December 2012 that I wanted a kid. She confessed she always did, but was willing to sacrifice that to be with me. We were older then and my wife had problems conceiving. She always said, we can always adopt, but I was very against it. In the fall of 2015, it became pretty clear that it wasn't happening the normal way. That fall though, I started to come around on adoption, inspired by a family we saw on TV every week who enjoyed a certain form of entertainment we do, and we both would sigh about how we wanted to have that. Wife started talking more about adopting a child out of foster care, and on the 1st of January 2016, I came around and we agreed we'd adopt a teenage girl out of foster care. Took 4 months to get certified to adopt out of our state from foster care, and after so many heartbreaks and caseworkers never getting back to you, we saw this great girl on a TV news segment about adoptions in January 2017. Were chosen for her caseworker a few weeks later, met her in March, moved in April, and officially became our daughter in October. We love her to death, and she loves us, and we genuinely like her, and she us. The three of us have amazing chemistry. On the surface, you'd wonder how long we've been a family, but sometimes there are things about her that wouldn't be if she had been raised by us her entire life. Things we don't foresee changing, like her interest in school academics. Just an example. And because of this, I feel guilty because I didn't want kids for all those years, and if I had changed my mind early on, we could have had our own who would be of similar age to our daughter, but been raised by us her entire life to date. Not to mention that anything that is a reminder that we aren't our daughter's bio parents, even though we now have a birth certificate with our names as parents, hurts us, especially my wife, and then that makes me feel guilty about my previous stance. Just thought I'd share because although our kid wasn't unwanted by us, I didn't want a kid for a long time and we ended up adopting a teen out of foster care. But at times I feel guilt that I didn't come around sooner. On the other hand, I never ever wanted a baby, and we got to skip that. You and your wife are both amazing for giving a wonderful home and family for your foster teen. It can be really hard for kids to be in the foster system, so I can't even imagine what it must have been like to come home to you guys. My son saved my life, but being a single mother is so freaking hard. I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I love my son more than anything, but god dang is it hard. I can't ever seem to grasp the fact that I can't force his dad to be involved in his life or care. My heart is completely shattered for him. I had my son last year in June. He's 7 months old now. I didn't want kids at all. Having a kid seemed like a life sentence I wasn't ready for. His dad and I discussed abortion when I got pregnant, and I talked to my parents and his parents and we decided to keep him. Lol, obviously, he's 7 months old now, but I'm 25 and was really unsure. When I was pregnant I would have panic attacks all the time, severe depression because I was scared I couldn't give him the love he needed or things in life that mattered. Now that I've had him, it's been the best. I don't know if it's because he is such a good baby or too cute, but my life has changed for the better. I work harder, I stopped drinking so much, and I have a love I never thought I would have. His dad and I are in an amazing place, and things just feel right. Before I got pregnant and when I was pregnant, I felt like everything was just on a whim, if that makes sense. Like I had no solid roots, and now I do. He makes me want to be a better me, and dang it for him, I will be the best, even if the best is still mediocre lol. But yeah, my life is pretty great. Recently he stopped sleeping through the night, but he's teething so that will come to an end, hopefully. I'm so exhausted, and coffee is my best friend lol. Thanks for this question. I never really thought about it before and now I'm going to go cuddle Colonel Chunkers, a nickname his aunt gave him cause he's so husky lol. I actually didn't find out I was pregnant until I was over 20 weeks. It's a complicated story, and too late for abortion, so I immediately started looking towards adoption but was eventually talked out of it by so many different people. I had a career I loved that was not child friendly, I had a boyfriend I liked but had never considered settling down with. I had plans to travel the world and do amazing things. All of these things screamed to me that I shouldn't keep this baby. My daughter is 11 now and is my greatest achievement in life so far. It's also taken years of heck and hard work to get to a place where I don't regret not following my gut instinct. I had to start over with a new career and will always be sad at leaving behind something I was both passionate about and good at. I stayed with the boyfriend far longer than I should have because I really didn't think I could be a parent without him. Gaslighting is a really terrible thing. I had a nervous breakdown when my daughter was 3 from all the stress and feelings of inadequacy that came with my new life. Things got better when I realized that the more I invested in myself and my well-being, the better I could make life for her. That's not to say I stopped putting her needs first, just that I didn't need to be a martyr for her life to be good. I went back to school and got a better job, and didn't sleep for 2 years straight I think. I finally changed the locks to my apartment and called the cops on my ex-boyfriend when broke in. Turns out he never wanted to be a dad, but just thought it would be a good way to keep me. My daughter hasn't seen him in years. I started sharing my favorite things with my daughter and celebrating all of her accomplishments. I found a person who was also trying to make his life better for his kid and married him. It takes years for parenthood to pay off, but we're starting to see our kids moving towards being the smart, adventurous, and generous adults we hope they'll become. We're also planning on taking our girls to travel the world, starting with South America this fall. This is still not the life I expected to have. I've done much less than I intended in a much longer span of time, and it's still hard not to be resentful. Mostly I've learned to just enjoy the small victories and to make goals toward a better future. I freaking hate it. I freaking hate it so much. My child is my world and I really truly refuse to exist in a world where I don't see him all the time, but I miss everything so much. I had to move to another state because my child has a mountain of family in Detroit, and we had none in Denver. I miss my friends, my sleep, my freedom, my diet, my time. I used to be able to do anything I want, and I lost it because a condom broke while we were in a cabin. I never wanted to be a parent. I guess life is fine, but sometimes I just want to take it all back. When I feel like that though, I think about not seeing his smile, and I just bawl my eyes out. I'm stuck. On the one hand, all I want is my old life back, and on the other hand, I can't imagine my life without him. You have been visited by the Wealth Rat. Subscribe in 12 seconds and he will share his wealth with you. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.